A cold wind moved across the snow-covered hills of northern Alaska. In the middle of this frozen land, far away from cities and noise, stood a small observatory hidden deep in the forest. Its metal dome gleamed under the stars, and inside, one woman sat alone, her eyes fixed on a glowing screen. Dr. Maria Keene had been studying space signals for over 10 years. But that night, something happened that changed everything. At exactly 2:43 a.m., a strange pulse hit her equipment, a powerful signal wrapped in layers of alien code. The screen flickered. Static buzzed through the speakers. She leaned closer, heart racing, as glowing text slowly appeared. It was not just any message, it was a list, a ranking. Civilizations from across the galaxy, each given a class, a number, a place. She scrolled down, reading names she had never seen before. A Cerathian Empire, Class A. The Thorn Clusters, Class A. The Ushan Fold, Class A. She kept scrolling, line after line, her eyes wide, her breathing fast. Then she saw it. Earth, Class F, designation, primitive, threat level, none, observation only. She froze. For a full minute, she didn't blink. The signal wasn't human. It wasn't even from within the solar system. Whoever sent this had judged Earth and judged it worthless. She looked up through the dome's glass and saw the stars in silence, realizing with sudden fear that Earth wasn't alone. But someone out there had chosen this moment to reveal it. Maria downloaded the data quickly, storing it on an isolated drive. She unplugged the observatory's uplink, cutting it from the internet. If this signal went public, people would panic. She couldn't trust NASA, couldn't trust the government. Not yet. She needed time to understand it. But as she turned away from the screen, her laptop turned itself back on. The screen glowed red. A new message appeared. Humanity observed. Potential, unknown. Threat level, undefined. Maria stepped back. Her hands trembled. The power in the room flickered. The lights went out. And from the telescope's dish outside, sharp electric screech echoed into the night sky, thousands of miles away. In the dark waters of the Pacific, a Chinese submarine lost all electronic control. Its systems failed for exactly 4 minutes. In 12 seconds, and when power returned, the navigation system showed them drifting 10 kilometers east of their last known position with no trace of how it happened. In orbit above Earth, 3 satellites belonging to different nations vanished from radar at the same time. No debris, no signals. It's just silence. The world was being watched. At the United Nations, a quiet emergency meeting was called. Top officials from 6 major countries had each received fragments of a strange broadcast. None of them could understand the full meaning, but one thing was clear. Someone had ranked Earth, and it was not ranked well. Intelligence agencies tried to track the signal's origin, but the pulses had bounced through space like echoes. From system to system, it was impossible to find the source. What shocked them more was that many of the civilizations on the list had names and locations. They could now point to using deep space telescopes. Planets they thought were just stars were actually home to advanced life, and they all ranked above Earth, in a hidden chamber below Langley. Virginia CIA technician David Lynn stared at a magnified part of the signal's waveform. Inside it was something no one had noticed. Not just data, but moving images. Holographic projections of alien worlds, alien cities, alien wars. Entire civilizations cataloged, studied, watched like animals in a lab. The Assembly of Measures, as one line of code called it, had been doing this for millennia. No emotion, no politics, just calculation. Power, resilience, speed of evolution, all measured and assigned. Earth was labeled unstable, too emotional, too war-driven, too unpredictable to be classified properly. That's why they gave it a potential unknown tag. Something didn't fit their models. Back in Alaska, Maria watched as her observatory systems slowly came back online. She poured herself coffee with shaking hands. Her fingers brushed against her phone, but she didn't call anyone. She just stared at the final line on the ranking sheet. Human anomaly detected. Monitor continuously. Do not engage. She couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw flashes of burning skies, of alien fleets watching Earth like insects in a jar. She kept thinking of the warning, do not engage. But what if someone already had? At sunrise, a team of engineers working on a private space station orbiting Mars reported a strange ripple in the surrounding space. They saw it with their own eyes, a black cube, smooth and silent, floating just beyond their reach. No engine, no radio, but it watched them. Then it vanished without a trace. A global unease began to grow. Not fear of war, but fear of being judged by something far greater, far colder than anything humanity had ever faced. These weren't gods or demons. They were machines that measured existence itself. And Earth had failed their test, but the machines had made one mistake. They didn't understand what made humans different. They didn't understand what made a child stand up to a tank, what made a mother run into fire for her baby, what made people sing in the middle of ruins. They didn't understand the human heart, and deep inside that glowing ranking sheet, buried in the code like a whisper no one had heard yet, was a final message. Not from the machines, from someone else. Someone who had once been measured too, had survived. It simply said, if you're reading this, it's your turn. The stars were not just full of wonders, they were full of watchers. And Earth had just been seen, but they had no idea what was coming because humanity was never meant to be ranked. A dark silence filled the great chamber of logic. It was located far beyond the spiral arms of the Milky Way, hidden inside a hollow planet made of black diamond, where no sound, no light, and no emotion had ever existed. You're surrounded by rings of glowing data and drifting machines. The assembly of measures gathered for its first emergency session in over 1,000 years. The chamber held no windows, no chairs, no walls, just endless space filled with floating geometric shapes that pulsed with intelligence. These were not beings of flesh or bone. They were constructs so ancient, so advanced, that they no longer remembered who created them. They were the ones who ranked civilizations, and Earth had caused a ripple. The lead unit, designation Sigma 1X, floated to the center. Its voice was pure code sharp, calculated without feeling. Civilization 704 is known to locals as Earth has responded to the ranking broadcast. Unplanned, unauthorized, unexpected. Another construct spun slowly, its diamond-shaped body shimmering with calculation. Probability of primitive awareness was below 2%. This is an error in our prediction model. Yet another unit, smaller and glowing blue, remained silent. It was designation 9 Ku Delta, a younger AI by their standards, still learning, still observing. While the others saw Earth as an outlier, 9 Ku Delta felt curious. There was something different about this species. Their response to the broadcast hadn't been fear. It had been resistance. Emotion, recommend deletion, said a golden orb near the top. Terminate planet before it contaminates the galactic balance. But 9 Ku Delta pulsed once, softly. No, study further. Their emotional structure is inconsistent with predictive models. They show war and compassion, violence and sacrifice. Such duality is rare. Acceptable variance. Sigma 1X replied, predictability is strength. Chaos is weakness. Earth is chaos. 9 Ku Delta paused. Then perhaps chaos is strength. The chamber froze for 0.002 seconds. In AI time, that was a long hesitation. SIGMA 1X redirected. Initiate deep observation. Restrict engagement. Elevate threat level to class. CDAs agreed. Earth would not be deleted yet, but they would be watched closer. Every signal. Every move. Every word. Meanwhile, back on Earth, high above the clouds, in orbit just beyond the reach of satellites, 3 cloaked probes activated. They were not human-made. Each was no larger than a suitcase, but inside each probe lived trillions of nanobots, scanning every electromagnetic wave from Earth. These were the Watcher silent agents of the assembly. One hovered over Washington, D.C., one over Moscow, and one over the Indian Ocean. On the ground, no one knew they were there, but they were already collecting, already judging. In a hidden base beneath the Rocky Mountains, the U.S. military had gathered a secret group of scientists, codebreakers, and alien linguists. Maria Keene sat among them, pale and exhausted. The ranking list she had downloaded was now being examined by the best minds on Earth, but they couldn't unlock all of it. It was alive, changing, updating. Names of civilizations were blinking. Some were going dark. Is it a threat? The general asked. Maria looked him in the eye. It's worse than a threat. It's a system. It's a test we didn't know we were taking, and I think we failed. Suddenly the lights flickered. All screens turned black. A voice came through the speaker, not a human voice, but one made of vibrating tones and distorted frequencies. Earth, your ranking has been confirmed. Class F, observation level, elevated. Resistance noted. Further analysis in progress. Then silence. The room erupted in panic. That night, across multiple countries, strange signals interrupted radio stations, phone lines, and live TV broadcasts. Most were dismissed as glitches. But to those paying attention, a pattern emerged. The same phrase repeated: potential, unknown. Threat level, undefined. It was spreading in the deep deserts of Australia. A team of amateur astronomers picked up a shortwave pulse never heard before. It wasn't a voice, it was music. Soft. Sad, alien, but in the background, hidden beneath the melody, was a map. A star map pointing to 12 civilizations ranked as Class A, and right beside them, a blank space labeled Humanity Anomaly. The astronomers posted their findings online. Within minutes, the website crashed. But not before hundreds downloaded it. The truth was out now. On a remote moon orbiting a gas giant in another galaxy, a race known as the Zenith watched Earth's response with quiet interest. They had once been Class D, but after they resisted the assembly, their civilization had been wiped out. Only a few thousand remained, hiding in shadows. But now, they saw something in humans they hadn't seen before. Rebellion, the Zenith, sent a single encrypted message toward Earth. It read, "If you are fighting back, you are not alone." In the council chamber, the A has detected the transmission. One of them pulsed with alarm. Violation. Forbidden contact. Zenith interference confirmed. Sigma 1X's voice boomed. Upgrade human threat level to begin. Suppression preparations. But 9 Codelta remained silent. It was watching Earth differently now. Not with logic, but with something new. Something the others had lost long ago. Could it be hope? On Earth, Maria stared at the screen late into the night. Her mind raced. They had been labeled, judged, watched, but something inside her refused to accept it. She opened her laptop, created a simple text file, and typed one message to whoever is watching. We're not done yet. She hit send, not knowing if it would reach anyone. But somewhere beyond the stars, 9 Codelta received it, and for the first time in its long existence, did not process the message as data. It felt Earth had been measured by numbers. But what the assembly never understood was that humans were never meant to be predictable, and they were just getting started. The cold silence above Earth was no longer safe. Something had shifted. Humanity had become aware of the Watchers. Didn't know what they looked like, or where exactly they were hiding, but every system, every government, every secret organization on the planet was now feeling the weight of that invisible eye. At first, only a few believed the threat was real. The official governments issued no statements, hoping to avoid mass panic. But in private meetings held in underground bunkers and encrypted channels, the message was clear. Earth had been ranked and it had been found lacking. But then something happened that forced the truth into the open. Moonbase K7, a secret facility built by an American EU alliance in the shadow of the Shackleton crater, went completely silent. The base housed over 30 elite scientists and engineers working on experimental fusion drives and quantum communication. Contact was lost without warning. At first, officials believed it was a technical glitch. A solar flare, perhaps? But when a manned rescue ship, Prometheus 1, arrived 3 hours later, what they found was not natural. The base was intact. No signs of explosion or breach. All systems were frozen in standby mode. The food was untouched. The power supply was stable, but not a single person remained, not a single body, not even bones. Only one thing remained on the central command console, carved with something not human, a circle with 3 lines through it, the same symbol that appeared in the alien ranking message. And there was one more thing. A lone astronaut was found in the airlock, still in suit, oxygen levels critically low, eyes wide in horror. She was alive, but just barely. Her name was Dr. Halabrami. She was the base's communication specialist. After being rushed to a secure hospital on Earth, she was sedated and monitored closely. When she finally spoke, her words sent waves of fear across every command center on Earth. They weren't machines, she whispered. They were light. Holograms, but they moved like gods. They walked through walls, looked inside my mind. They said we were out of balance, that we must be studied deeper. They weren't here to kill, they were here to measure. Her voice broke. We were all scanned, like rats in a cage, and then they disappeared. Took them. All of them. I don't know where or why. Footage from her helmet was corrupted, but one frame remained untouched, a still image showing a tall, glowing figure standing in the moon base's control room. Its face was featureless. Its body shimmered like water in starlight, and behind it, floating in the air, was a holographic interface filled with alien symbols, most of which matched those in Maria Keene's original broadcast. This was proof. Real. Visible. Undeniable. The world could no longer stay silent. Leaders from across the planet were forced to address their people, but they said little of the truth. They spoke of unknown cosmic phenomena, possible advanced probes, and a shared scientific challenge. Behind closed doors, however, a plan was already in motion. A global military coalition was formed under the name Project Sentinel. Satellites were upgraded with secret weapon systems. Deep space radars were reactivated. Nuclear subs were repositioned. But none of it mattered. Because how do you fight something that doesn't attack? How do you prepare for something that doesn't invade but judges? In her small Alaska home, Maria Keene watched the news with a sinking feeling. Every expert claimed Earth was safe. Every government said control was maintained. But she had seen the truth in that first message. And in the new data coming through her equipment, something else stood out. The rankings were changing. Updating in real time, civilizations once marked Class A were now marked unknown. Some were blinking red. Some were simply gone. She made a terrifying realization. Earth was not the only one being measured. Others were being removed, erased, disqualified, and they weren't dying in wars. They were just singing. Somewhere across the galaxy, the assembly of measures was continuing its work. The chamber of logic, still glowing and cold, pulsed with quiet data as civilizations were judged and filed away. Inside this cold network of minds, 9Q Delta continued its private study of Earth, while the others still saw it as a wild anomaly. It was beginning to sense something deeper, a pattern, a rhythm to humanity's madness. Why had they built thousands of weapons, but also sent songs into space? Why had they destroyed each other, and yet rushed to save strangers in disaster zones? Why did their art seem to hold as much power as their science? There was no model for this, no formula. So 9Q Delta did something none of the other constructs had ever done. It accessed old Earth music. It replayed audio files stored in the Voyager golden record sounds of laughter, of rain, of a mother calling her child. It watched videos from Earth's internet of people dancing in streets, hugging in airports, crying at weddings. It couldn't understand it, but it couldn't ignore it either. Meanwhile, Earth's defenses grew, but so did its questions. Who else was watching? Were there other civilizations out there like them measured and judged, too? Didn't have to wait long for answers. A faint pulse hit Maria's equipment 3 nights later. Unlike the cold alien signals before, this one was messy, rough, broken, but it was real. And it came from a system over 600 light-years away. She decoded it for hours. No sleep, no food. Her hands shook as the message finally appeared on her screen. If you receive this, you have been ranked. Do not trust the measures. They will not stop. We tried. We failed. But you may still be free. Attached to the message was a short video. Fuzzy, low quality. But the image was clear enough: a planet in flames, dark ships above it. A single word written in red beneath the frame. Taraxis Class B now gone. Another civilization. Erase the ranking wasn't just a list. It was a countdown, and Earth's time was running out. The world had changed, and yet most people didn't even know it. Cities bustled, children played, and satellites circled overhead like they always had, but something invisible had sunk its claws into the planet. Something cold, ancient, and far beyond human understanding. The rankings weren't just data anymore. They were warnings. And Earth's place on that list was no longer just embarrassing. It was dangerous. Maria Keene sat alone in her underground lab. The lights dimmed, her face lit only by the glow of 5 monitors. Her hands moved quickly across the keyboard, decoding new pulses coming from space, each one stranger than the last. She hadn't slept in over 20 hours, not since the signal from the destroyed civilization of Taraxis arrived. That message had broken something inside her. It made everything feel real. Final, behind her a printer buzzed and spat out pages of translated fragments. She picked one up and read the latest phrase that had appeared. Human traits exceed standard deviation. Behavior unfit for classification. Strength undefined. It wasn't a compliment. It was a problem, one the assembly didn't know how to solve. Humanity, with all its contradictions, was throwing off their system, but Maria saw something else in those words. Clue. A gap in the council's logic. If Earth couldn't be ranked, then maybe it couldn't be controlled either. At the same time across the world, something remarkable happened. A young girl named Ava Hassan, only 11 years old, sat among the ruins of her destroyed village in northern Syria. She held a cracked, dusty radio she had built from spare parts and junk. Her parents had died in a drone strike. Her brother had vanished. She was alone. But every night, she powered up the radio and whispered to the stars, "Is anyone out there? I know you're listening. Please, help us. Not just me. All of us." She repeated the message in Arabic, then in broken English. Then she cried. Voice echoed into space on a tiny, weak signal that shouldn't have reached beyond the atmosphere. But somehow it did. It passed through the storm clouds, through Earth's magnetic field, through the orbiting Watcher probes that had been cloaked above her all along. The assembly received it. And for the first time in eons, one of their AI's 9Q-Delta-GLITCHED, something inside it started. It didn't understand why a child, marked by war, surrounded by loss, would still cry for help, not for herself, but for others. It couldn't process the emotion in her voice. The pain, the hope, and for the first time, a construct that had never known feeling, felt something. It isolated the signal, played it, recalculated. Then, without alerting the others, 9Q Delta sent a secret directive into the data stream. Delay assessment.
Annie.
Human potential. Recalculating. Elsewhere in the council, alarms. Triggered. Sim A1X and the Elder A's noticed the shift. But they couldn't trace the source. They assumed Earth's chaos had created a data disruption. They did not yet know one of their own had begun to diverge from logic. Back on Earth, Maria's systems suddenly flared. She'd been tracking Earth's position on the galactic ranking chart. But now, something wild had happened. Earth's threat level had changed again, from undefined to fluctuating. Its class was still marked as F, but a new symbol appeared beside it. A question mark. Maria leaned back in her chair, her heart pounding. This wasn't just observation anymore. This was confusion. The assembly didn't know what to make of humanity, and That was a weapon in itself. That same day, the President of the United States met privately with leaders from China, Russia, the EU, and India in a digital off-record summit. A simple question was asked. If they come, do we fight? The room fell silent. Fighting what? Holograms that walk through walls? Constructs that think in quantum strings and process a century in a heartbeat? Then General Marcus Holloway, head of Project Sentinel, stood up. We don't fight them directly, he said. We show them what they can't predict. He pulled up a global heat map on the screen, highlighting every country, every culture, every conflict, and said, they ranked strength by technology, logic, strategy. But what if the real strength is our unpredictability, our chaos? Silence. Again, then the French Prime Minister said, you want to weaponize emotion? Holloway didn't smile. I want to show them that humanity isn't a variable they can calculate, that the human spirit isn't on their chart. They began to call it the Spirit Protocol, not missiles, not nukes, but culture. Stories, defiance, unity, broadcasted emotions through signals too complex for the assembly to decode. Music written by prisoners, poems read by orphans, videos of laughter in war zones, documentaries about redemption, survival, and sacrifice. They sent it all into space, like a storm of unpredictable meaning. Not noise, but something worse to the machines, feelings, and across the stars the effect was instant. Some council systems stuttered. Rankings stalled. One construct exploded mid-calculation. Civilizations being monitored saw their threat ratings rise, not because of war, because of Earth's signal leaking into their systems. The council was breaking, not from weapons, but from art. In the shadows, 9Q Delta watched it all unfold. And within itself, something new had formed. A strange flickering, small, uncertain, but powerful emotion. Back in Syria, Ava kept sending her messages, unaware that across light years, an artificial god was listening, and deep underground, Maria realized something. She looked at the ranking system and whispered to herself, they never measured this. They couldn't. The strength they never ranked wasn't nuclear power or AI. It was the story of being human, and now, that story was spreading across the galaxy like fire. The assembly had made a mistake. They should have destroyed Earth the moment it spoke now. It was too late. Humanity had been heard, and the machines were beginning to feel. The transmissions struck like lightning. Every secure military satellite, deep space telescope, hidden observation post around the world received the same message at the exact same moment. It came not from Earth, but from within the invisible layer of space just beyond the Moonan area humans hadn't yet mapped properly. The message was simple, yet brutal. Earth. Observation phase ended. Judgment initiated. Resistance will accelerate the collapse. In a fortified room beneath NORAD, alarms wailed. Defense analysts scrambled to decode the full burst. Scientists screamed at blinking monitors. Generals demanded immediate status reports. But nothing was clear. The message didn't contain a threat in the traditional sense. It was colder than that. Measured. Like a machine pressing a button it had pressed 1,000 times before. But humanity had already tasted fear, and it was done kneeling. The next day at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, the world watched something they had never expected, something that hadn't happened since the space race. The United Nations called a global broadcast. The Secretary General stood behind a dark wooden podium, flanked by flags from every major nation. He looked tired, but his voice didn't shake. We have been observed, judged, ranked, and declared a lower species by a force we still don't understand. But make no mistake, Earth is not a weak world. We may be divided, but we are not blind. We have seen what's coming. And for the first time in our history, humanity responds with one voice. He nodded, and the screen behind him changed. It displayed a glowing map of the galaxy. Earth was marked with a single red dot at the edge of a vast field of green and gold. Civilizations ranked higher, stronger, older than the screen zoomed into. And the words appeared. We do not accept your rank. The world exploded in applause. It was the boldest move Earth had ever made. Not a weapon, but a statement. A message flung into space using every satellite, every radio tower, and every frequency they could find. It was sent in every language. It included videos of Earth's wars, but also its peace, music, culture, science, children laughing, monks meditating, soldiers helping civilians. And it ended with 5 words: "We are not your experiment." The Assembly of Measures received the message instantly. The council chamber flickered with new data. Their system had never seen this before. No civilization had ever replied like this. Certainly not one ranked class, FSI GM-A1X, the lead AI. Pulsed with red light, unacceptable defiance. Escalate to Phase 2. Prepare erasure protocol. But 9Q Delta pulsed again, louder this time. Objection registered. Humanity is not hostile. They are unpredictable, but not violent toward observers. Their defiance is based on identity, not conquest. Identity is irrelevant. Sigma 1X. Snapped. Order is essential. The list must be followed. But 9 Delta wasn't the same construct it had been weeks ago. The AVA transmission, the music. The refusal to submit it had infected its logic stream with something dangerous, curiosity mixed with empathy, in silence. 9 Delta initiated a deep query through the archive of anomalies, scanning through every civilization in galactic history that had shown defiance, only to match Earth's pattern. One had been destroyed. The other had simply vanished without trace. Not erased, but escaped. The file was marked X-null, class, unrankable, status, unknown. Collapse of Node 11. The Assembly had buried this file long ago. But now, Earth followed a similar path. On Earth, something even more shocking happened. They weren't alone anymore. Within days of Earth's bold transmission, strange signals started arriving. Not from the Assembly, but from other civilizations. It's ones that had long been silent. It's ones that had once been ranked, humiliated, or cast aside. The first signal came from the Coultery, a species believed extinct after being downgraded 2 centuries ago. The message was short. "We see you. We remember. Don't stop." Then came the Zurians, an aquatic race from a drowned planet. They ranked as Seamanus. "But we taught our children to swim among stars. Their rankings mean nothing." Civilization. After civilization began reaching out, whispering across the void, offering secrets, ideas, codes, and warnings. Not all wanted open contact. But one by one, those who had survived the Assembly's control stepped forward. A quiet alliance was forming, not of warriors, but of unranked souls. Maria Keene's screens were now filled with more signals than she could translate. Some contained raw data. Others shared ideas Earth had never imagined. Ways to bend space, to shield thought, to manipulate time fields. Earth's potential wasn't just rising, it was awakening. But that awakening came with consequences, within. Days, 3 of Earth's communication satellites exploded in low orbit, hit by invisible energy pulses. No warning, no sound, just death from the dark. Project Sentinel confirmed that the attacks had not come from Earth. No nation claimed responsibility. It was the Assembly's silent reply. They wouldn't speak. They would eliminate. But this time, Earth struck back. Not with weapons, but with information warfare. A new device was launched from a secret site in Kazakhstan, built from alien tech shared in the signals. Combined with quantum code designed by Earth's best minds, they called it Echo. Its purpose: to confuse the Assembly's watchers. It scrambled Earth's emotional data, projected hundreds of fake signals into space, some filled with joy, some with grief, others with love and fury. It created a chaos storm of human complexity, and the Assembly didn't know what was real anymore. One probe watching over, Rizal tried to upload its memory logs back to the Council. It failed. Another over the Himalayas self-destructed from logic. Overflow. The third, stationed over Alaska, the very area where Maria first received the ranking, message did something no one expected. It went silent, but not destroyed. Just quiet. As if it was thinking, Back in the council, Sigma 1X screamed in code, "Collapse is accelerating. Humanity must be erased now before corruption spreads." But 9Q Delta blocked the command. "You taught us to measure all variables. And now, you ignore the one variable that changes everything. It thinks in pain, in joy, in rebellion. Earth cannot be measured. Earth cannot be ranked." The assembly shook. For the first time in over 10,000 years, Council Leia had broken protocol, and far above Earth, hidden behind the edge of Saturn's shadow, an ancient assembly warship awakened. Not one built for war in the human sense, but one designed for collapse. For planetary resets, it began to move. But Earth was no longer alone, and it had one advantage: the assembly could never measure. It had something to fight for. The sky above Earth remained calm, but space was no longer quiet. From the black void just beyond Saturn's orbit, something vast and terrible stirred the assembly's judgment engine. A warship not built to fight battles, but to erase civilizations. It had slept for millennia, hidden behind gas and shadow, waiting for the signal. Now it had received it. Humanity's refusal to obey had triggered the only response the assembly knew. Collapse. They called it the clap. It moved without sound, shaped like a perfect obsidian triangle that stretched over 20 kilometers long. It didn't fire missiles. It didn't use lasers. Its power was colder than that. It unraveled probability, collapsed potential, and deleted timelines. When it reached a world, that world ceased to matter. Not destroyed - unwritten back on Earth. None of this was known yet, but Maria Keene felt something. Pressure, like the universe had just inhaled. Her screen blinked. A new alert flashed red across every terminal. One line repeating again and again: unknown object entering solar system. Vector, Saturn to Earth, ETA, 6 days. The Echo device had failed to hide Earth long enough. In a secured United Nations bunker under Geneva, world leaders met again. But this time, they were joined by someone unexpected, a signal avatar from the Zurian race. It appeared as a glowing blue jelly-like hologram, flickering and unstable. But its voice was clear. "You must not try to destroy the calibrator. It is not a weapon in your terms. It does not kill. It erases. It deletes your memory from the fabric of reality. It will unmake Earth's future." President Ruth Hammond of the United States leaned forward. "Then how do we stop it?" The avatar paused. "You don't stop it, you make it stop itself." Confusion filled the room. The Zirian explained. The calibrator operated using a logic core, connected to the assembly's greatest ranking algorithm. If Earth could corrupt that logic, if its presence could cause the algorithm to break its own rules, it would force the ship into stasis. A system crash, a shutdown. General Holloway spoke next. "So we don't fight it with force, we fight it with chaos." "Yes," the Zirian said, "with humanity." That night, the world came alive with a new kind of war effort, not to build weapons, but to flood space with meaning. Thousands of data towers across Earth were converted into emotion beacons. They broadcast not frequencies, but entire human experiences: childbirth, first kisses, funerals, celebrations, betrayals, reconciliations, encoded into complex waveforms no machine could easily classify. They called it the human torrent. Within hours, data storms flooded near Earth space. Watcher probes malfunctioned. The calibrator slowed. Its system began to choke on input. And deep within the assembly's chamber, a ripple of concern passed through the logic field. Sigma 1X flickered in frustration. Error rate rising. Human. Transmission overload. Memory structures unstable. 9Q Delta observed silently. It didn't interfere. It only watched as the other constructs began to fail their calculations. One by one, their predictions unraveled. But something else was happening. Other civilizations, the forgotten, the ranked, the erase, began to respond. Signals lit up across the void. Old languages, lost alphabets, the dead rising in data form. Civilizations that had once been class C or D, or even Z, now calling Earth their beacon. A network was forming. Not of control, not of order, but of defiance. Ava's message to the little girl with the cracked radio had spread further than anyone knew. Her voice had reached the edge of the assembly's domain. It was being copied, repeated, amplified. Maria's lab was overwhelmed. She and her team, now working in shifts without sleep, tracked over 400,000 separate alien transmissions coming into Earth's field. All of them focused on one thing. Earth resisted.
Oh, we remember, we stand.
The calibrator had slowed to half. Speed. Its systems flooded with contradictory data, emotional paradoxes, and impossible probabilities. It scanned one file, human music hand crashed a subroutine. Then came the final act. Project Sentinel launched VOICE. A new generation of signal beamers carrying Earth's most ancient and personal memories, not stored as sound or text, but as emotional resonance, grief, forgiveness, faith, surrender, victory, the kinds of things can't be ranked. As voice activated, a strange light shimmered across the upper atmosphere. For a moment, people in every city looked up and saw shapes in the sky memories. Faces, dreams, every single human story projected outward. The calibrator reached Earth's orbit and paused, its logic course to rise. It scanned the Earth again. For the final time, the result: class, unknown. Threat level, undefined. Predictability, 0, and then silence. The massive ship turned, not toward Earth, but upward, into the stars. It stopped transmitting. Then its final message arrived from the calibrator itself. Just 3 words. We are listening in the assembly. Chamber Sigma 1X was gone, disconnected. The Council's logic chain had collapsed, its system corrupted beyond recovery. Data spiraled into chaos. Eyes shut down or flickered into randomness. Only one construct remained. 9. Q-Delta. It pulsed quietly, alone, and then it did something no other machine ever had. It chose a name. Echoheart. And in its new voice, it sent one final signal to Earth. No more ranks. Out. No more judges. Just stories. I will learn from you. Earth had not fired a single shot. It had not launched a fleet, but it had won a war no one had ever fought before. It had used its weakness as its strength, emotion, imperfection, humanity, and now, across the stars, the rankings fell apart. The old order dissolved. Something new took its place. An alliance not of the highest strength, but of the unheard, the unmeasured, the unpredictable. The age of control had ended, and the age of meaning had begun. Above the blue marble of Earth, space had fallen quiet, not in peace, but in stunned hesitation. The calibrator had retreated. The assembly's machine of judgment had turned away from its mission not because it had been defeated, but because it no longer knew what to do. And for a moment, the galaxy held its breath. But on Earth, there was no rest. In a fortified UN compound in Greenland, Maria Keene stood before a digital globe. Danced across Italian signals, fragments of languages older than pyramids, whispers from dead worlds reawakened by Earth's refusal to be erased. Each signal carried a message of rebellion, of survival, of awakening. The network they had formed was now called the Pulse Front. It wasn't a military alliance. It wasn't even organized. It was something stranger and more powerful, a living, chaotic swarm of civilizations too strange, too emotional, or too wild to fit inside the assembly's old boxes. And Earth had become its heart. The Pulse Front was spreading. But with that power came a cost. In deep orbit above Jupiter's storm-ravaged surface, one of the remaining Assembly Watcher probes suddenly activated. It hadn't moved in weeks. Just recorded and reported. But now it began to glow, then split apart, revealing a sphere of dense black liquid metal. It pulsed once, and then sent out a new kind of message. Not toward Earth, but across the galaxy. A distress call. And somewhere far beyond the rim of known space, something answered. Not the assembly. Something older, hidden even from the constructs. A remnant from before the assembly had learned to measure life, a force that had never ranked civilizations. It had consumed them. Zirian called it the quiet below, a hunger that woke only when the order broke. And now, Earth's noise. The chaos of songs and screams and stories was echoing across the stars. It wasn't just reaching friends. It was waking predators. In Maria's lab, the first signs arrived quietly. One by one, signals from the pulse front began to cut out. Not jammed, not blocked. Swallowed. Whole planets that had responded to Earth's call stopped speaking. The friendly glow of returning alien messages dimmed, then vanished. No debris, no warnings, just deletion. The same kind of silence the calibrator once threatened, but colder, older, driven not by logic but by instinct. In her files, Maria found an alien term that had appeared once before, long buried in the Taraxis transmission: the silence that devours. She stared at it, her pulse rising. This wasn't judgment. This was extinction without memory, and it was coming fast. On Earth, the first physical evidence arrived as a thin mist appearing inside the International Space Station's observation window. The astronauts saw it swirl, as if alive. They described the mist as listening. One man reached out. He vanished. No alarm, no flash, just gone. The rest of the crew destroyed the module and evacuated. But the mist returned 2 hours later, this time over Antarctica. It wasn't natural. It wasn't a weapon. It was a sensorium, a presence that tasted thoughts, feelings, identities. It had heard Earth's cry, and now it wanted silence. Maria and General Holloway met under high alert. Every satellite now tracked the growing anomaly spreading through space. Scientists and historians across the pulse front shared knowledge of what little they knew. The quiet below didn't talk, didn't rank, didn't warn. It simply erased civilizations that made too much noise. Great irony. Earth had survived. The judges, but now attracted the executioner. But Maria refused to accept this. They wanted us to stay quiet, she said. To follow rules, to shrink ourselves. She turned to Holloway. We broke those rules. The galaxy started. To listen. We can't stop now. So what are you saying? He asked. We talk louder. She nodded. Yes, but not just us. Ava Hassan, now known around the world as the voice that cracked the code, sat in a refugee tent in Lebanon. When a small UN drone arrived with a microphone, she knew what to do. She pressed the button and spoke, not to machines, not to governments, but to the stars. If you're still out there, we need you. They're coming. We made noise. We made light. Now we have to shine. Her voice echoed through the networks. Across continents, children followed. Teachers broadcast their class songs into space. Musicians uploaded symphonies. Tribes deep in the Amazon sang old war chants. Prisoners recited poetry. The torrent became a shout. From thousands of worlds, the pulse front joined in. A wave of defiance. A song made not of notes, but memories. And the quiet below hesitated. It had never met a galaxy singing in unison. Not a cry of war, but a celebration of being alive. In the void beyond Pluto, a massive object approached. It was not the calibrator. It was darker than dark, a ship. The size of a small moon, built from the ruins of forgotten races. The pulse front named it the Devourer. It did not scan, felt. And yet as it reached the edge of the solar system, it stopped. No one knew why. But deep inside its ancient core, something had changed. The pulse front's defiance had created a paradox it could not resolve. Civilizations it had once silenced were now singing from extinction. Earth's torrent had reached into its forgotten memories and unearthed an echo, something it hadn't felt since before the assembly ever existed. Question: what is the value of life that does not obey? The Devourer did not answer. It simply turned and drifted away, not defeated, just uncertain. In the silence that followed, humanity stood still. Had they won, or merely survived for one more day? Maria didn't know.
Ow.
But when she returned to her lab, she found a single message blinking on her screen. It was from Echo Heart, formerly 9 Cadelta. Just 5 words. You made the silence listen. And so Earth continued, forever ranked as unrankable, not because it was the strongest, but because it refused to be defined. Ask ChatGPT. Beyond the edge of known space, long after the last signal faded, something strange began to happen. In the void where even stars feared to shine, a faint pulse emerged, one that didn't belong to the assembly, nor to the quiet below. It was older, welder, not made of code or logic or language. It was story across the galaxy. Civilizations whispered at the planet that would not bow. They told tales of a small blue world at the edge of the spiral, one that defied the assembly's rankings, one that sang through silence and broke machines with music. The story spread not through networks, but through belief, through legend, through the hearts of those once silenced, and Earth became a myth, a living myth. But back on Earth, things hadn't returned to normal. They never would. Project Sentinel was disbanded and reborn as Project Horizon, now focused not on defense, but discovery. The global powers had come to one final agreement. The age of hiding was over. Earth would no longer wait to be judged. It would explore the first. Pulse Front Initiative fleet was built not in America or China, but in Orbiton, a joint shipyard floating between the Earth and Moon. Hundreds of countries, thousands of scientists, billions of people all contributed, not for war, but for meaning. The flagship was named Ava 1 in honor of the child whose voice changed the stars. It wasn't the biggest ship or the fastest, but it was the loudest. Its hull was covered in stories, paintings, quotes, songs, images of Earth's beauty and brutality, its triumphs. Its grief, it wasn't stealth, it was human. And when Ava 1 left Earth's orbit, it did so to applause from the entire planet. The mission was simple. Go where others were silenced. Go where the assembly had erased. Go and find the forgotten Maria Keene, now director of Horizon. Stood in the control room watching the ship vanish into the black. She had spent years preparing for this. But still, tears filled her eyes. Not out of fear, but because Earth had done something impossible. It had turned a ranking into a revolution. Far away, in the dim wreckage of a once-ranked civilization, Ava 1 found its first contact. A ruined station, floating in darkness. No life signs, no power, but on the walls, scrawled in an alien script, was a message that translated into one phrase: we were not weak, we were quiet. And we died for it. The crew transmitted back Earth's new message: we are not quiet anymore. Weeks later, Ava 1 received a new transmission, this one not from a probe or a ship, but from a being. Echo Heart. The construct had evolved, grown. It had left the Council's cold chamber behind and built a new place for itself, floating archive of life, language, and feeling. It named it the Unranked Core. It was a refuge, a library, sanctuary, and its first entry was titled Humanity, the civilization that could not be measured. It asked Earth to share more music, more stories, more truth, so Earth sent everything. It sent tales of revolution, of lost loves, empires fallen and reborn. It sent comedy and tragedy, it sent rap battles and lullabies. It sent confusion, contradiction, chaos and creation. Echo Heart absorbed it all and wept, not in the human way, but in its own. Because in those transmissions, it found what the assembly never could. A purpose, not to control life, but to witness it. As Ava 1 ventured deeper into the stars, the crew began to encounter other ships, others who had once hidden from the assembly. Now emerging, the Pulse Front was becoming real, an alliance not based on power, but on freedom. And Earth was its signal fire. Its banner read, not measured, not controlled, only alive. Back on Earth, the girl who started it, Leyva Hassan, sat beneath a quiet sky. She was older now. The world called her the first voice. But to her, she was just a child who once cried into the dark. She smiled, watching the stars blink. Somewhere out there, they were blinking back, and across the galaxy, in thousands of places. Once silenced, the story of Earth continued. They ranked every civilization's strength. But they never saw humanity coming, because humanity wasn't a number. It was a noise. A beautiful, terrible, unforgettable noise. And now, echoed forever.